The soft wail of sirens pierced through the Lagos night as a sleek black convoy sped toward a towering private hospital. The red and blue lights flashed across marble walls, and within minutes, the billionaire's car came to a halt at the emergency entrance. He stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, his dark brown skin glistening with sweat and fear. His perfectly tailored black suit clung to him as if it, too, shared his panic. Behind him, the door of the second car opened, and his wife was carried out, pale, trembling, her once bright face dimmed by pain. Doctors rushed forward. The lead physician, a middle-aged man in a white coat, barked orders. The nurses scrambled to prepare a stretcher as the billionaire followed closely, his heart racing. Inside the brightly lit corridor, the smell of antiseptic hung heavy in the air. Machines beeped, doors swung open, and the billionaire's eyes darted between the faces of the medical staff, searching for hope. "Stabilize her," the doctor yelled. The room filled with the hum of machines. The woman's chest rose and fell faintly, her breathing uneven. A nurse wiped sweat from her forehead, while another adjusted the oxygen mask. Minutes felt like hours. The billionaire's gold wristwatch ticked, but time itself seemed frozen. His face, once the picture of calm power, was now pale with fear. Finally, the doctor stepped back, removing his gloves. His face said it all before his lips moved. "We've done everything, sir. Her condition isn't responding to treatment." The billionaire's jaw tightened. "What do you mean it's not responding?" The doctor hesitated. "We've called specialists from abroad. They're on their way, but whatever this is, it's beyond what medicine can explain." The words hit him like a blow. He turned toward the hospital window, staring into the storm outside. Thunder rumbled, lightning flashed, as if the heavens echoed his torment. He pressed his palm against the glass, whispering to himself, "You'll be fine, my love. I won't let you go." In the corner of the ward stood Grace, the loyal maid who had been with the family for years. Her hands trembled as she whispered a quiet prayer. "God of the poor, please show us mercy. Let the light find her again." The doctors moved quickly around the woman's bed, adjusting tubes and machines, but it was clear her pulse was fading. As the storm grew louder outside, Grace's gaze shifted to the door. A quiet thought formed in her mind, a name she had not spoken in years. A man from her village. A healer. She didn't say a word yet, but in that moment, as the billionaire stood broken and helpless beside his wife's bed, the seed of a miracle had been planted. The night in Lagos stretched long, but somewhere in the distance, under the rain and thunder, destiny was already moving. The rain had not stopped since the night before. Heavy drops drummed endlessly against the glass windows of the billionaire's mansion, echoing through its empty halls. Servants moved quietly, speaking in whispers, their faces shadowed by fear and uncertainty. In the upstairs master suite, the billionaire sat motionless beside his wife's bed. She lay pale and still, her breathing shallow. Tubes ran from her arm to a machine that beeped faintly in the background. Her once radiant smile, the one that had charmed him from the very first day, was gone, replaced by silence. The city outside was awake, yet the mansion felt frozen in sorrow. The family doctor stood near the door, fidgeting with his stethoscope. "Sir," he said softly, "we've contacted specialists from the UK and South Africa. They've all seen the test results. None can identify what's wrong." The billionaire didn't move. His deep voice came out low, steady but wounded. "So you're saying everyone has failed?" The doctor sighed. "Medically, yes. Her heart is strong, but something unseen is draining her life." The billionaire rose from his chair, walking to the window. The storm clouds reflected in his eyes, dark, wild, and filled with unspoken rage. He had built an empire, survived economic wars, crushed competitors. But now, standing before this unseen force, he was powerless. Grace, the maid, stood quietly by the door, watching her master. Her uniform was simple, but her heart carried a courage none of the doctors possessed. She had served this family for 10 years and loved them like her own. As she gazed at the fading woman, a memory stirred, an old man from her childhood village, a man they called Baba Ojoro, the herbalist with hands blessed by nature itself. She swallowed hard. Could she dare mention his name here, in this mansion of science and wealth? Suddenly, the billionaire turned, his eyes sharp. "Grace," he said, "you grew up in the East, didn't you? Back in your village. What did people do when medicine failed?" Grace froze. "Sir," he stepped closer, desperation cracking his composure. "Tell me, when doctors couldn't heal someone, what did your people do?" She looked down, unsure if it was safe to speak. We called on a herbalist. But, sir, that's—" "Enough," he interrupted, his voice rough but desperate. "I don't care what it is. Find me whoever can help her. I'll do anything." The doctor looked alarmed. "Sir, with all due respect, traditional medicine is unpredictable. It could be dangerous." The billionaire's glare cut through him. "Dangerous?" His voice rose. "She's dying already, doctor. What's more dangerous than that?" Silence fell. Only the storm spoke. Grace stepped forward, her voice trembling but filled with conviction. "There's someone I know, back home. He helped my mother when she was dying. Maybe he can help Madam, too." The billionaire exhaled shakily. "Then go. Find him. Whatever it takes." Grace nodded and hurried out, grabbing her umbrella as she disappeared into the rain. Hours passed. The billionaire stayed beside his wife, gripping her hand, whispering prayers he never believed in before. "Please don't leave me." "Not you." Outside, Grace's old motorcycle splashed through muddy roads as she made her way toward the outskirts of the city. The rain soaked her clothes, but she didn't stop. Somewhere far from the glitter of Lagos, deep in the heart of a small village, an old man sat beneath a mango tree, grinding herbs in a wooden bowl. His eyes lifted suddenly, as if he had felt a distant call. He muttered, gazing at the storm clouds. "A rich man's tears are falling tonight." The wind carried the scent of wet earth and destiny. Grace was still miles away, but the story of a miracle had already begun to unfold. The night had deepened by the time Grace reached the edge of her village. Her clothes clung to her skin, soaked from the rain that refused to end. The narrow dirt path ahead was flooded, her old motorcycle coughing and sputtering as she pushed it through the mud. Every breath she took was heavy with fear and urgency. When she finally arrived, the village was silent, just the sound of crickets and distant thunder. She ran past the small clay houses until she reached one built with bamboo walls and a rusted zinc roof. Smoke rose faintly from the backyard fire. Grace paused, catching her breath, then whispered, "Baba, Babo Joro." The door creaked open slowly, revealing the old herbalist. His hair was gray and wild, his skin wrinkled like folded parchment, yet his eyes were bright, sharp, alive, and knowing. He wore a loose white wrapper around his waist, and a necklace of cowries hung from his neck. He studied her silently for a moment, then smiled faintly. "Grace, daughter of Ememe Nwanyi, I wondered when you would return." Grace fell to her knees, tears mixing with the rain dripping from her hair. "Baba, please, I need your help. A woman is dying. The doctors couldn't help her. Only you can." The old man turned toward his fire, stirring the herbs that simmered in a clay pot. "You speak as if the power lies in my hands. Tell me, who is she?" Grace hesitated, then said softly, "She's the wife of my master, a billionaire. She's dying, and no medicine can save her." The herbalist chuckled, a low, almost sad sound. "A billionaire?" He spat into the fire, the flames hissing. "The rich always forget that the same earth that feeds them also buries them." Grace bowed her head. "Please, Baba. He's desperate. He said he'll do anything." The old man's face softened slightly. He walked over to a small wooden shelf, his hands moving over bottles of roots, bark, and dried leaves. "Desperation makes even kings kneel," he said. "But this sickness you speak of, it is not of the body. It is of the spirit." Grace frowned. "What do you mean?" The herbalist turned toward her, his eyes deep as night. "Something or someone has placed darkness upon her. Until that is broken, no medicine will work." Grace's heart thudded. "Can you help her?" He smiled faintly. "If her husband's heart is pure, yes. But if pride still rules his spirit, then even the gods will turn away." He began packing small pouches of herbs, powders, and oils into a brown leather satchel. "We leave before sunrise." Grace wiped her tears. "Thank you, Baba." The old man looked up at the sky. "Don't thank me yet, child. The path between life and death is narrow. Sometimes, when you save one soul, another must pay the price." By dawn, they were on the road to Lagos. The city was waking up, vendors shouting, buses honking, the smell of roasted corn filling the air. Grace sat beside the herbalist in a taxi, clutching the satchel tightly. At the mansion, the billionaire hadn't slept. His eyes were red from hours of waiting. When he heard the car pull up, he rushed out, hope and doubt wrestling inside him. Grace stepped out first, drenched and exhausted, then helped the old man out. The billionaire's guards exchanged uncertain glances. This barefoot stranger didn't look like someone who could save a dying woman. But the herbalist didn't flinch. He raised his staff slightly, tapping it once on the ground. The sound echoed unnaturally loud in the air. "Lead me to her," he said calmly. Inside the room, the billionaire's wife still lay motionless, her chest rising faintly with each breath. The herbalist moved slowly toward her, placing his palm on her forehead. He closed his eyes, murmuring in a language that no one understood. The air in the room shifted, subtle at first, then heavy, like the atmosphere before lightning strikes. He opened his eyes suddenly. "It's true," he whispered. "This is not illness. This is vengeance." The billionaire frowned. "Vengeance? From who?" The herbalist turned to him slowly. "Someone close. Someone whose tears you caused long ago." The words hit him like thunder. He looked down, his mind racing back to the past. Business rivals, betrayals, forgotten promises. "Tell me what to do," he said hoarsely. The old man nodded. "You will not like what you must face. But if you want her to live, you must confront your sin." He reached into his satchel and pulled out a small gourd sealed with red thread. "At sunset, when the rain returns, I will call her spirit back. But before that, you must confess the truth that's been hidden." The billionaire swallowed hard. "What truth?" The herbalist looked at him, unblinking. "You know." The room went silent again. Only the faint beeping of the machine filled the air. Outside, the rain clouds began to gather once more. The old man placed a gourd beside the dying woman and whispered, "The storm is not your enemy. It is the witness." Grace stepped back, watching the billionaire. His face was pale, his breath uneven. Whatever secret he carried, it was about to decide whether the woman he loved would live or die. And somewhere deep in the house, thunder rolled, as if the heavens themselves were preparing for truth to rise. The sky over Lagos turned dark before evening. Thick clouds gathered, heavy and restless, as if the heavens sensed what was about to happen inside the billionaire's mansion. The atmosphere was charged. Every servant moved quietly. Every window shut against the storm that was slowly building. Inside the master bedroom, candles replaced electricity. The herbalist sat cross-legged on the floor, a calabash of water in front of him, filled with herbs, ashes, and palm oil. The air smelled of incense and ancient mystery. Grace stood beside the billionaire, nervous but hopeful, while the dying woman lay on the bed, her breathing shallow, her lips pale. The herbalist's deep voice broke the silence. "The time has come, but before I begin, truth must be spoken. The spirit that binds her will not release until the one who caused her pain confesses it." The billionaire's jaw tightened. He stood still, eyes fixed on the floor. His suit jacket was gone. His sleeves were rolled up, his gold watch forgotten on the table. His once proud face now looked hollow, like a man at war with himself. Grace looked at him. "Sir, please, if there's something you've been hiding, this is the time." The old man nodded. "Confession opens a way for mercy." The billionaire's voice came out low and cracked. "I once wronged someone," he said slowly. "A woman long ago, before I became who I am today." The herbalist didn't move. "Continue." He took a deep breath. "When I was building my company, I made enemies. There was one woman. She worked for me, loyal, humble, hard-working. I trusted her. But when money and power came, I pushed her aside. I accused her falsely of betrayal, and destroyed her reputation to save my name. She left with nothing. I never saw her again." Grace's eyes widened. What was her name? The billionaire hesitated, guilt clouding his face. Her name was Adora. The herbalist's eyes flashed. "And you never sought her forgiveness?" "I didn't until now," he whispered. "She disappeared. No one knew where she went." The herbalist's hands trembled slightly as he sprinkled the mixture from the calabash on the floor. "The woman you wronged, her soul still weeps. But it is not only her pain you bear. Your wife's suffering is tied to it. The curse was never meant for her, but it found her through you." Thunder rumbled, shaking the windows. The lights flickered. Grace gasped as the dying woman's fingers twitched slightly. "Baba!" she cried. She moved. The herbalist lifted his staff, drawing a pattern in the air. "The spirit is restless. It wants release." He motioned for the billionaire to kneel. Reluctantly, the man sank to the floor beside the bed, his hands trembling. "What must I do?" "Speak to her," the herbalist commanded. "Tell the truth as if Adora were here." The billionaire stared at his wife's still face, tears glistening in his eyes. "Adora," he said, voice breaking, "if you can hear me, if your spirit still lingers, please forgive me. I was blinded by pride and greed. You were loyal to me when I had nothing, and I repaid you with cruelty. I ruined you, and I never looked back." The wind outside howled louder, the curtains whipping violently. Grace held her breath. The herbalist's chant grew faster, stronger, his voice echoing like thunder. Suddenly, the room temperature dropped. A gust of cold air swept through, extinguishing half the candles. Then, faintly, the woman on the bed gasped, a sharp, shivering breath that filled the silence. The billionaire froze. "She's breathing." Grace rushed to her side. "Her pulse, it's coming back." The herbalist raised the staff again, sweat streaming down his forehead. "She is not free yet. The curse is lifting, but something holds it back." He turned sharply to the billionaire. "There is still one truth unspoken." The man's face twisted in pain. "I told you everything." The herbalist slammed his staff on the floor. "No, you hide something deeper. The part you swore never to say aloud." Lightning flashed, illuminating the room. In that flash, the billionaire fell to his knees completely, his voice shaking. "I loved Adora," he cried out. "I betrayed her because I feared losing everything. I chose power over her, and when she left, she was carrying my child." The room fell deathly silent. Grace's mouth fell open. "Her child." He nodded weakly. "I never saw them again." The herbalist slowly closed his eyes. "Then her curse was born of grief, not hatred. She wanted you to feel her loss." Outside, thunder rolled one final time, and the rain began to pour. The herbalist's chant softened, the rhythm slowing until it faded into silence. The woman on the bed stirred again, this time, her eyes fluttered open. She blinked weakly, confused but alive. Grace covered her mouth in awe. The billionaire stared, tears falling freely. He reached out, holding her hand gently. "You're safe, you're alive." The herbalist leaned heavily on his staff. "The price has been paid." And just as suddenly as it had begun, the storm outside stopped. The candles flickered once more, glowing brighter than before. Grace knelt quietly, whispering a prayer of thanks. The billionaire remained on the floor, humbled and trembling, his head bowed. "Thank you," he murmured. The herbalist looked at him, weary but calm. "Don't thank me. Thank truth. It is the only medicine stronger than death." He turned to leave, but before he stepped out, he added softly, "Make peace with your past before it finds you again." The billionaire watched him go, still holding his wife's hand, realizing that the wealth he once thought could buy life had just been overshadowed by something far greater, mercy. The following day dawned with a calm unlike any the mansion had seen in weeks. The once ominous clouds were gone, replaced by a warm, glowing sun that poured golden light through the tall glass windows. The air felt lighter, softer, as though even nature had breathed a sigh of relief. The billionaire sat quietly at his wife's bedside, her hand clasped in his. Her color had returned. The faint smile on her lips proof that the herbalist's strange ritual had worked. For the first time in months, the machines around her were silent. No beeping, no alarms, just a steady rhythm of her breathing. Across the room, Grace arranged fresh flowers into a vase, glancing occasionally at her boss. She couldn't hide the admiration in her eyes. He looked different now, not just in appearance, but in spirit. The proud man who once barked orders now sat still, humbled, lost in thought. He spoke quietly, almost himself. I've spent half my life building walls made of pride, and the other half trying to hide behind them. But now I see those walls kept me from the people who truly mattered. Grace turned toward him. Sir, maybe it's time to rebuild, but with love this time. He nodded slowly. Yes, with love. For a while, silence filled the room again. The soft chirping of birds from the garden outside blended with the gentle hum of the city far below. Then a knock came at the door. The butler entered, holding a plain brown envelope. Sir, this came this morning. No name, just your address. The billionaire took the envelope, his brow furrowing. The handwriting was old-fashioned, almost familiar. He opened it carefully. Inside was a faded letter, the ink slightly smudged. He began to read silently. But before he finished, his hand started to tremble. Grace, sensing something, stepped closer. Sir, are you all right? He looked up slowly, tears glistening in his eyes. It's from Adora. Grace gasped softly. Adora? The woman you... He nodded, unable to speak for a moment. Then, voice shaking, he began to read aloud. If this letter finds you, it means the winds of truth have blown through your house. I forgave you long ago, not because you asked, but because hate was too heavy for me to carry. My son has grown strong. He does not know your name, and I never told him, because I want him to build his own path, not live in the shadow of a man who once broke me. He paused, his throat tightening. But I want you to know that I prayed for you. Every day. I prayed you would find peace before the world took it from you. I prayed that the woman you married would show you what love feels like when it's true. I have no riches, but I have something you cannot buy. Forgiveness. Live well, and let your soul rest in truth. By the time he finished, the room was silent again, the kind of silence that comes after something sacred. Grace wiped her eyes quietly, trying to hide her emotion. She forgave you, she whispered. The billionaire nodded, voice low, even when I didn't deserve it. He folded the letter carefully and placed it in the inner pocket of his suit, close to his heart. Then he stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the garden where the sunlight touched the roses his wife had planted years ago. She was right, he said softly. Money gives comfort, but truth gives peace. Grace smiled faintly. Maybe that's why your wife survived. Her healing began the moment you chose truth. He turned to her, thoughtful. And maybe Adaora's forgiveness is the reason my heart is still beating. Just then, the hospital door opened again. The doctor walked in, clipboard in hand, his expression a mix of disbelief and relief. Sir, he said with a small smile, this is incredible. Her test results came back. All signs of infection are gone. Her body is responding like she was never sick at all. The billionaire looked up in awe. You mean she's going to be fine? The doctor nodded. Better than fine. It's a miracle. Grace placed a hand over her mouth, whispering, Thank you, God. The billionaire closed his eyes, exhaling deeply. No, thank her. Thank Adora. The doctor blinked. Adora? The billionaire just smiled, shaking his head. A name you'll never find in your medical records, but one that saved 2 lives. The doctor chuckled softly, confused but respectful, and left the room. Grace followed quietly to give him space. Alone again, the billionaire sat beside his wife once more, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. I lost so much trying to be powerful, he murmured. But in losing, I found what power really means. Outside, the sun was higher now, shining brighter over the city. Workers in the mansion garden trimmed flowers. Laughter echoed faintly, and for the first time in years, peace filled the billionaire's home. Not from wealth, not from control, but from humility and truth. He leaned closer to his sleeping wife, whispering, When she wakes, I'll tell her everything. No more secrets. And as he sat back, sunlight bathed the room in gold, a symbol that the storm was finally over, both outside and within. Days later, the mansion that once echoed with despair now rang with joy. The scent of blooming jasmine filled the courtyard as staff, friends, and neighbors gathered, not out of obligation but celebration. The billionaire stood before them, dressed simply in a white native attire. No gold wristwatch, no designer shoes, just peace written all over his face. Beside him, his wife stood radiant and healthy, her laughter soft yet strong, her spirit alive again. Grace stood nearby, a proud smile on her face. The herbalist had since returned to his quiet village, refusing fame or reward. He had left behind only one message, written on palm leaf. Healing belongs to the humble. As the billionaire addressed everyone, his deep voice carried the calm of a man who had truly changed. Once, I thought power meant control, he said. I believed wealth could silence pain and pride could cover guilt. But I was wrong. Real power lies in humility. Real healing begins with truth. The crowd nodded silently. Even the youngest gardener stopped his work to listen. He continued, a poor herbalist walked into my mansion and saved what all the doctors and money could not. He healed my wife, but more than that, he healed my soul. He reminded me that God can use anyone, no matter how small, to teach the greatest lessons. He paused, emotion rising in his voice. I used to see the poor as weak. Now I know they're God's strongest messengers. A ripple of applause filled the air. Tears shimmered in the eyes of those who had witnessed his journey. From arrogance to gratitude, from blindness to wisdom. His wife placed her hand gently on his arm. And now we rebuild, she said softly, but this time with love at the center. He nodded, smiling. Yes, with love. As music filled the courtyard and the guests clapped, Grace looked toward the sky, whispering to herself, even broken hearts can bloom again. The scene faded to the image of the herbalist's hut, quiet, peaceful, with the same palm leaf message pinned above the doorway. Healing belongs to the humble. Moral lesson. True healing begins not with wealth or status, but with humility, love, and forgiveness. Never look down on those beneath you. The same hands you reject today may one day be the ones God uses to lift you. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Your support helps keep African storytelling alive, one tale of faith, love, and redemption at a time.